My son-in-law stole my husband's business legacy. My quiet granddaughter is a forensic accounting genius who destroyed his life. I was arranging flowers from Arthur's memorial garden when I heard the shouting from inside the house. The voices echoed through our family home in Riverside like thunder before a storm. At 69, I'd learned to recognize the sound of a family crisis brewing. I set down my pruning shears and walked toward the house. Through the kitchen window, I could see my daughter Rebecca pacing frantically while her husband Connor stood over our dining room table with papers scattered everywhere. "This is insane, Connor." Rebecca's voice was shrill with panic. "You can't just take everything." "It's not taking, it's consolidating." Connor's voice was cold, businesslike. "Arthur left a mess. Someone needs to clean it up professionally." I pushed through the back door to find them surrounded by legal documents, business contracts, and financial statements. Everything related to Arthur's construction company, the business he'd built over 40 years and left to our family when he died 6 months ago. "What's going on here?" I asked. Connor looked up from the papers with that patronizing smile he'd perfected over the years. "Helen, we need to talk. Arthur's business is in worse shape than anyone realized. The only way to save anything is to restructure everything under my management." "Your management?" "I have an MBA and 20 years of corporate experience. Rebecca has a nursing degree. You're a retired librarian. Who do you think is qualified to run a construction company?" The casual cruelty in his dismissal left me speechless. Arthur's company had been profitable for decades. It employed 37 people and was booked solid for the next 8 months. "Besides," Connor continued, "Arthur's will names me as the executor of the business assets. Everything needs to be transferred into my name for tax purposes." That was a lie. I'd been there when Arthur signed his will. Connor was named as co-executor with me, not sole executor. "Connor, that's not what Arthur's will says." "Helen, you're grieving and confused. This is exactly why Arthur wanted someone with business experience handling these decisions." From the corner of my eye, I noticed a small figure sitting quietly at the kitchen counter. My 15-year-old granddaughter Sophia, supposedly doing homework, but clearly listening to every word. She caught my gaze and gave me the slightest shake of her head. So subtle that Connor and Rebecca never noticed, but clear enough for me to understand. "Don't say anything yet." Sophia had always been the quiet observer in our family. While her parents focused on Connor's career and Rebecca's hospital shifts, Sophia spent hours with me and Arthur, learning about business, asking thoughtful questions, absorbing everything. What they didn't know was that my quiet granddaughter was actually a mathematical prodigy, who'd been secretly auditing Arthur's books for 2 years. And if Connor thought he could steal my husband's legacy, he was about to learn that our family's most dangerous weapon was hiding in plain sight. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel, and let us know where you're listening in the comments. For 3 years after Connor married Rebecca, I thought I was watching a success story unfold. Connor worked as a regional manager for a pharmaceutical company, pulling in 6 figures and driving luxury cars. Rebecca had returned to nursing after Sophia started high school, and they lived in a beautiful suburban home with a swimming pool and 3-car garage. They seemed to have everything figured out, but I'd started noticing small things over the past year. Connor's credit card getting declined at a family dinner. Rebecca mentioning they were cash poor, despite Connor's supposedly high salary. Whispered arguments about money that stopped whenever Arthur or I entered the room. After Arthur died, Connor's attention toward our family business became suspiciously intense. He started asking detailed questions about contracts, profit margins, and cash flow. He volunteered to help Rebecca understand the financial documents. He suggested that managing a construction company was too complex for women without business training. What I didn't realize was that Connor had been studying our family's finances for months, planning to position himself as the indispensable savior of Arthur's legacy. The manipulation began subtly. During family dinners, Connor would make comments about how overwhelming the business must be for me, how complicated construction accounting was compared to simple personal finances, how lucky we were to have someone with his expertise available to help. "Helen, Arthur was brilliant with tools and managing crews," Connor would say with fake sympathy. "But let's be honest, bookkeeping was never his strong suit. I've been reviewing some of the files Rebecca brought home, and there are some serious issues that need professional attention. Arthur's bookkeeping had been meticulous. He'd run that company like a Swiss watch for 4 decades. But Connor made it sound like we were sitting on a financial time bomb that only he could defuse. The pressure campaign escalated after Arthur's funeral. Connor started bringing business problems to my attention almost daily. A contract that needed immediate restructuring. A client payment that was mysteriously delayed. Equipment purchases that were financially irresponsible. Every issue he presented had the same solution. Transfer business control to Connor so he could fix things properly. I wanted to trust him. Rebecca loved him, and he was Sophia's stepfather. When someone you consider family tells you they're trying to help, you want to believe them. But something felt wrong. Arthur had been proud of his business. He'd show me the books every month, walked me through every major decision. The company was thriving, not struggling. I started paying closer attention to Connor's explanations, and the numbers didn't add up. Client payments that Connor claimed were delayed had actually arrived on schedule. Equipment purchases he called irresponsible were necessary replacements that Arthur had planned for months. Connor was creating financial problems that didn't exist, then positioning himself as the only solution. What I didn't know was that while Connor was manipulating me and Rebecca, Sophia had been conducting her own investigation. And what she discovered was far worse than anyone imagined. 2 days after Connor's announcement about restructuring the business, I found Sophia in Arthur's old home office at 6 a.m., surrounded by financial documents and working on her laptop with intense concentration. "Sophia, sweetheart, what are you doing up so early?" She looked up with those serious green eyes that reminded me so much of Arthur. "Grandma Helen, we need to talk. Connor's lying about everything." I closed the office door and sat beside her. "What do you mean?" "I mean Connor isn't trying to save Grandpa's business. He's trying to steal it." Sophia turned her laptop screen toward me. "And he's not just stealing from us. He's been embezzling from his own company for 2 years." The screen showed what looked like a complex spreadsheet with multiple columns of financial data. Numbers, dates, account transfers, expense reports. "Sophia, how did you get this information?" "Grandpa taught me how to read financial statements when I was 12. Remember how I used to sit with him every Sunday while he did the books? I wasn't just watching. I was learning." I remembered. Arthur had been so proud of Sophia's interest in the business side of his work. He'd joked that she had a natural head for numbers and might take over the company someday. For the past 2 years, I've been helping Grandpa digitize his records and set up better accounting systems. But I've also been teaching myself forensic accounting through online courses and YouTube tutorials. Forensic accounting. My 15-year-old granddaughter had been studying financial crime detection. When Connor started making those comments about the business being in trouble, I decided to audit everything myself. What I found wasn't problems with Grandpa's company. It was evidence that Connor has been stealing from his employer for years. Sophia clicked to another screen showing expense reports and credit card statements. Connor's been submitting fake business expenses, creating shell vendor accounts, and skimming money from his company's client payments. He's stolen over $180,000 in the past 18 months. My breath caught. "Sophia, how do you know this?" "Connor uses the same laptop for personal and work activities. When he brings it to family dinners and connects to our Wi-Fi, I've been monitoring his digital activity." "You've been spying on Connor?" "I've been protecting our family." Sophia's voice carried a certainty that was startling on such a young face. "Grandma, Connor isn't just financially irresponsible. He's a criminal. And now he's trying to steal Grandpa's business to cover up his own crimes." She pulled up another document that looked like a bank transfer record. Connor's been moving stolen money through cryptocurrency exchanges and offshore accounts. He's planning to liquidate Grandpa's business assets and disappear before his company discovers the embezzlement. The room spun around me. Connor wasn't trying to help our family. He was planning to destroy us to save himself. "There's more," Sophia said quietly. "Connor's been forging documents to make it look like Grandpa's business owes money it doesn't actually owe. fake vendor bills, fraudulent tax liabilities, invented debt obligations. She clicked to a folder labeled Forged Documents, and my heart sank. Invoices with Arthur's forged signature, contracts with manipulated dates, tax forms with falsified information. He's been setting up a paper trail to justify selling off all of Grandpa's assets. He'll claim the business needs to be liquidated to pay debts that don't exist, then pocket the money and blame the company's financial mismanagement for the losses. I stared at the evidence on the screen, trying to process the scope of Connor's betrayal. Sophia, this is criminal fraud, identity theft, embezzlement, forgery, and conspiracy. Sophia's voice was calm, matter-of-fact. Connor's committed at least 6 different felonies that I can prove. What do we do with this information? Sophia smiled, and for the first time since Arthur's death, I felt hope instead of fear. We're going to destroy him, Grandma, completely and permanently. Over the next week, I watched my granddaughter work with the focused intensity of a professional investigator, while Connor pressured Rebecca to sign transfer documents and rushed me to make urgent business decisions. Sophia systematically documented every crime he'd committed. The key to forensic accounting, she explained as she organized files on Arthur's desk, is building an unbreakable chain of evidence. Every transaction needs to be traced, every document needs to be verified, every lie needs to be cross-referenced with the truth. She'd created what looked like a war room in Arthur's office. 3 monitors connected to her laptop, stacks of printed evidence organized in labeled folders, a timeline of Connor's criminal activities mapped across an entire wall. How did you learn to do all this? I asked. MIT has free online courses in financial fraud detection. The FBI publishes training materials for forensic accountants. YouTube has tutorials for everything from cryptocurrency tracking to digital forensics. While Connor had been planning his theft, my teenage granddaughter had been earning the equivalent of a college-level education in financial crime investigation. But the real breakthrough came when I gained access to Connor's work computer. You hacked into his work system? I cloned his hard drive when he brought his laptop to Grandpa's funeral reception. He left it unattended for 20 minutes while he talked to the other adults. That was all I needed. The evidence she'd collected was staggering. Connor hadn't just been stealing from his pharmaceutical company. He'd been running a sophisticated fraud operation involving fake vendors, manipulated expense reports, and ghost employees. Look at this. Sophia pulled up a spreadsheet showing Connor's embezzlement timeline. He started small 2 years ago. 500 here, 1,000 there. But as he got more confident, the amounts grew larger. The progression was clear. Connor had evolved from petty theft to major financial fraud, stealing larger amounts each month until he was taking over $15,000 monthly from his employer. His company's annual audit is scheduled for next month, Sophia explained. Connor knows they're going to discover the missing money. That's why he's rushing to steal Grandpa's business assets. He needs to disappear before the audit exposes him. She clicked to another screen showing property records and financial transfers. Connor's already put their house up for sale, though he hasn't told Mom yet. He's been moving money to offshore accounts and researching countries without extradition treaties. He's planning to run away? He's planning to run away with our money and leave Mom and me behind to face the consequences of his crimes. The coldness in Connor's plan was breathtaking. He wasn't just stealing from us. He was setting up Rebecca and Sophia to be blamed for his financial crimes. There's something else. Sophia's expression grew more serious. Connor's been using Mom's nursing license to authorize fake medical equipment purchases for his company. If the FBI investigates, Mom could lose her license and go to prison for fraud she didn't commit. My daughter was being unknowingly set up as an accomplice to Connor's crimes. What's our next move? Sophia opened a folder labeled Destruction Protocol and smiled with an expression that reminded me exactly of Arthur when he was planning something brilliant. We're going to expose Connor to everyone simultaneously. His employer, law enforcement, the IRS, and our entire community. But first, we're going to make sure he can't run away when everything collapses. How? The same way he's been stealing from everyone else. Digitally. While Connor pressured Rebecca to sign transfer papers and scheduled meetings with lawyers to finalize the business restructuring, Sophia was orchestrating what she called Operation Complete Exposure. The beauty of Connor's crimes, she explained as we reviewed her evidence files, is that he documented everything digitally. His arrogance made him sloppy, and his sloppiness is going to destroy him. She'd organized Connor's downfall into 3 phases: asset protection, evidence deployment, and public exposure. Phase 1 is making sure Connor can't access or steal any more money before we expose him. I've already contacted Grandpa's bank and provided them with evidence of Connor's forged documents. They've frozen all business accounts pending investigation. Connor won't be able to access them? Connor will try to withdraw money tomorrow morning and discover that his forged authorization documents have been flagged as fraudulent. The bank will detain him for questioning while they verify his identity. Phase 2 was more complex. Sophia had prepared evidence packages for Connor's employer, the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, the IRS Fraud Department, and the State Attorney General's office. Each package contains everything they need to prosecute Connor for multiple felonies: bank records, forged documents, digital forensics evidence, cryptocurrency transaction histories. I've made it impossible for him to deny or cover up his crimes. When will you send these packages? They're being delivered simultaneously tomorrow at 9 a.m. By the time Connor realizes he's caught, every relevant authority will already have complete evidence of his crimes. Phase 3 was the element that made me both proud and slightly worried about my granddaughter's strategic thinking: public exposure through social media and local news. I've prepared a comprehensive presentation about Connor's crimes, including evidence that he's been stealing from a widow and orphan while pretending to help us. She showed me what looked like a professional documentary, complete with financial charts, recorded phone conversations, and documentation of every lie Connor had told our family. This will be posted simultaneously across all social media platforms, sent to local news stations, and distributed to everyone in Connor and Mom's professional networks. Sophia, this is going to destroy Connor's reputation permanently. Good. Her voice carried a coldness that reminded me she was Arthur's granddaughter as much as she was my granddaughter. Connor tried to destroy our family. He deserves to have his life destroyed in return. What about your mother? This is going to devastate Rebecca. Sophia's expression softened slightly. I've prepared a separate evidence package for Mom showing exactly how Connor manipulated her and used her nursing license without her knowledge. She'll understand that she was a victim, not an accomplice. That evening, Sophia made her final preparations while Connor and Rebecca argued in the living room about signing business transfer documents. Helen needs to stop being stubborn and start being realistic. Connor's voice carried through the house. Every day we delay costs us money. I found Sophia in Arthur's office, making final adjustments to her evidence files. Are you sure about this? I asked. Grandma, Connor thinks he's dealing with a grieving widow and a naive teenager who don't understand business. Tomorrow morning, he's going to learn that he's been living with someone who understands business better than he ever will. She closed her laptop and looked at me with Arthur's determined expression. Grandpa spent 40 years building something meaningful. Connor thought he could steal that legacy because we're just women who don't know any better. Tomorrow he's going to discover that the women in this family are exactly who you don't want to underestimate. At 8:47 a.m., I was making coffee when Connor burst through the front door in a rage. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his expensive suit wrinkled, and his face was red with fury. "What did you do?" he screamed at me. "Good morning, Connor. How was your visit to the bank? You know exactly how it was. They froze all the business accounts. They're claiming I forged authorization documents. They threatened to call the police." I sipped my coffee calmly. "Maybe because you did forge authorization documents." Connor's mouth fell open. How did you know about your forged papers?" "The same way I know about your embezzlement from the pharmaceutical company. The same way I know about your plans to liquidate Arthur's business and disappear." The color drained from Connor's face. "That's impossible. You don't understand business finances." "I don't. But Sophia does." As if summoned, Sophia appeared in the kitchen doorway with her laptop under her arm and a manila folder in her hand. "Good morning, Connor. I trust the bank explained why your forged documents were rejected. Connor stared at my 15-year-old granddaughter, like he was seeing her for tea. The screen displayed what looked like a law enforcement presentation, complete with Connor's photo and a detailed timeline of his crimes. I know that you've embezzled $187,000 from your employer over the past 2 years. I know that you've been forging documents to make Grandpa's business look financially unstable. I know that you've been using Mom's nursing license to authorize fraudulent medical equipment purchases. Connor's legs seemed to give out. He sat heavily in a kitchen chair, staring at the evidence on Sophia's screen. I also know that you're planning to disappear before your company's annual audit exposes your embezzlement. Unfortunately for you, your company received a comprehensive evidence package at 9 a.m. this morning. You sent them evidence? I sent everyone evidence. Your employer, the FBI, the IRS, the state attorney general, and the local media. By now, approximately 50 people know exactly what kind of person you really are. Connor's phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. Then started ringing continuously. That would be your professional life ending, Sophia said matter-of-factly. Connor grabbed his phone with shaking hands. Hello. Even from across the kitchen, I could hear the angry voice on the other end. Connor's face went white as he listened. Sir, I can explain everything. He started. The voice got louder and angrier. Something about terminated immediately, and criminal investigation, and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. Connor hung up and stared at his phone like it had bitten him. You're fired, Sophia observed. I calculate that happened about 4 minutes faster than I predicted. Connor's phone rang again. This time the caller ID showed FBI Financial Crimes. He declined the call, but it immediately rang again. They're going to keep calling, Sophia said. Federal investigators don't give up easily, especially when they have this much evidence. She turned her laptop screen toward Connor, showing him page after page of bank records, expense reports, and digital forensics evidence. You were very thorough in documenting your own crimes. Every fake expense report, every fraudulent vendor payment, every embezzled dollar. It's all here. Connor stood up unsteadily. I need to leave. I need to think. Actually, you need to stay exactly where you are, Sophia said. As if on cue, we heard car doors slamming outside. Through the kitchen window, I could see 2 black sedans parked in our driveway. Federal agents, Sophia explained. I may have mentioned to the FBI that you were planning to flee the country today. Connor ran to the window and saw the agents walking toward our front door. This is impossible. You're 15 years old. Age is irrelevant when you have evidence and the legal system on your side. The doorbell rang. Sophia closed her laptop and stood up. Connor, you tried to steal from my family because you thought we were too weak and too ignorant to stop you. You forgot that my grandfather taught me to never let anyone take advantage of people I love. She headed toward the front door, pausing to look back at Connor one final time. Oh, and Connor? The local news station will be airing a special investigation about your crimes tonight at 6 p.m. I thought you should know. By noon, Connor's professional destruction was trending on social media. The local newspaper had posted an online article titled, Pharmaceutical Manager Arrested in Elaborate Embezzlement Scheme, and the story was being shared across multiple platforms. But the social media reaction was what truly buried Connor's reputation forever. Sophia had uploaded her comprehensive presentation to YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok simultaneously. The video included recorded phone conversations where Connor admitted to forging documents, security footage of him accessing Arthur's business files without authorization, and a detailed explanation of how he'd manipulated our grieving family. The response was immediate and brutal. This man stole from a widow and tried to blame a teenage girl for not understanding business? Disgusting. Imagine being such a loser that you have to embezzle money and then get caught by a 15-year-old. That granddaughter is a genius. Connor never saw it coming. But the story that really went viral was the local news investigation that aired that evening. Amanda Rodriguez from Channel 8 had interviewed both Sophia and me about Connor's crimes. The segment included footage of Connor being arrested, testimony from Arthur's business partners about the company's actual financial health, and expert commentary on financial elder abuse. What makes this case unique, Amanda reported, is that the criminal was caught not by professional investigators, but by his own stepdaughter, who used advanced forensic accounting techniques to expose his elaborate fraud scheme. The interview with Sophia was the part that made the story go national. Sophia, you're 15 years old. How did you learn to conduct this kind of financial investigation? My grandfather taught me that protecting your family sometimes requires learning skills that other people don't expect you to have. I learned forensic accounting the same way other kids learn video games or social media. What would you say to other young people who might be facing similar situations? I'd say that criminals count on their victims being too confused, too scared, or too trusting to fight back. But if you understand how financial crimes work, you can turn the criminals' own methods against them. The clip was shared over 100,000 times in the first 24 hours. But the consequences for Connor extended far beyond social media embarrassment. His professional network completely abandoned him. Colleagues who'd worked with him for years publicly distanced themselves from his crimes. His LinkedIn profile was flooded with comments about his fraudulent activities. The pharmaceutical company where he'd worked issued a public statement condemning his embezzlement and announcing their full cooperation with federal investigators. Most devastatingly, Rebecca filed for divorce and obtained a restraining order preventing Connor from contacting her or Sophia. I can't believe I was married to someone capable of this, Rebecca told me through tears. Sophia tried to warn me about him months ago, but I thought she was just being a moody teenager. When did she try to warn you? She kept asking questions about why Connor was so interested in Dad's business records. She said something felt mathematically wrong about his explanations. I told her to stop being suspicious of family. Rebecca paused, wiping her eyes. My own daughter was protecting me from my husband, and I didn't even listen to her. 3 days after Connor's arrest, Sophia and I were reviewing the media coverage when the phone rang. Mrs. Patterson? This is Detective Sarah Chun from the FBI Financial Crimes Division. We'd like to speak with Sophia about her investigation into Connor Williams. I looked at my granddaughter, who nodded calmly. Is Sophia in trouble for accessing Connor's computer files? On the contrary, we're interested in consulting with her on similar cases. Sophia's forensic analysis is some of the most thorough work we've seen from anyone, let alone a teenager. After I hung up, Sophia smiled for the first time since Arthur's death. Grandma, I think I know what I want to do with my life. 6 months after Connor's arrest, the legal proceedings were moving faster than anyone had expected. Connor's attorney advised him to plead guilty to avoid a longer sentence, and the evidence Sophia had compiled made fighting the charges impossible. Connor Williams has been sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Detective Chin called to inform us. He'll also be required to pay full restitution to all his victims, including your family. How much will we recover? Based on asset seizure and his pension account liquidation, your family should recover approximately $240,000. That's more than Connor actually stole because the court included punitive damages for emotional distress. The recovery meant we could not only rebuild Arthur's business but expand it. Rebecca had decided to take a more active role in company management, and several of Arthur's former employees had expressed interest in returning to work for a family-owned business again. But the most satisfying consequence was watching Connor's complete social and professional destruction. His pharmaceutical company had not only fired him, but successfully sued him for the full amount of his embezzlement plus damages. His professional certifications were permanently revoked. His MBA alma mater had published a statement distancing themselves from his criminal activities. Most importantly, his crimes had been so well documented and widely publicized that he would never be able to work in any position involving financial responsibility again. Connor thought he was so much smarter than us, I mentioned to Sophia as we reviewed the final legal paperwork. He was smart, Sophia replied. He just wasn't smart enough to realize that intelligence isn't the same as wisdom, and wisdom isn't the same as experience. She pulled up a news article on her laptop about Connor's sentencing. Connor understood business theory and corporate manipulation, but he never understood that some people will fight back when you threaten their family. The article included a quote from federal prosecutor Janet Morrison. This case demonstrates that financial criminals often underestimate their victims. Connor Williams assumed that a grieving widow and a teenage girl couldn't possibly understand his sophisticated fraud scheme. His assumption was his downfall. But the story that made me proudest was the scholarship announcement. "Sophia, look at this." I showed her the letter from the State University Forensic Accounting Program. "They're offering you a full scholarship to study financial crime investigation. And early admission starting next fall, even though I'm only 16, Sophia added. "The FBI is also offering me a summer internship in their white-collar crime division." I looked at my granddaughter, this remarkable young woman who'd turned our family's worst nightmare into a career opportunity to help other families avoid similar crimes. "Are you happy with how everything turned out?" Sophia considered the question with her usual thoughtfulness. "I'm satisfied that justice happened. Connor destroyed our sense of security and trust, but he also revealed that our family is stronger than he ever imagined." She closed her laptop and looked at me directly. "Grandpa always said that protecting the people you love sometimes requires doing things that scare you. I wasn't scared of Connor. I was scared of letting him hurt our family and get away with it. And now I want to help other families who are facing similar situations. Connor isn't the only financial predator targeting vulnerable people. But after this case, maybe other criminals will think twice before assuming their victims are helpless." 1 year after Connor's arrest, I received a letter from Springfield Federal Correctional Institution. Connor wanted to meet with me and Sophia to explain everything and make amends for his crimes. Sophia was now 17, enrolled in advanced forensic accounting courses, and working part-time as a consultant for the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. When I showed her Connor's letter, her response was immediate. "Absolutely not. Don't you want to hear what he has to say?" "Grandma, Connor had 12 months in prison to think about his crimes. If he genuinely felt remorse, he would have written letters of apology, not requests for meetings. This is manipulation, not accountability." She was right, of course. But part of me was curious about what Connor thought he could possibly say to justify his actions. What if we went together? Just to see what he wants. Sophia considered this for a moment. "If we go on our terms. I want everything recorded, and I want the meeting to end the moment Connor starts making excuses or blaming other people for his choices." 2 weeks later, we sat across from Connor in a gray prison visiting room. He looked older, thinner, and smaller than I remembered. The expensive suits and confident demeanor were gone, replaced by a standard prison uniform and nervous energy. "Helen, Sophia, thank you for coming. I know I don't deserve your time." "You're right," Sophia said matter-of-factly. "You don't. What do you want?" Connor flinched at her directness. "I wanted to apologize. To explain why I did what I did. To try to make things right." "Explain then." Connor launched into a prepared speech about financial pressure, poor decisions, and circumstances spiraling out of control. He talked about feeling overwhelmed by debt, making increasingly desperate choices, and getting in too deep to find a way out. "I never meant to hurt your family," he concluded. "I thought I could borrow the money temporarily and pay it back before anyone noticed." Sophia listened without expression until Connor finished speaking. "Are you done?" Yes." "Good. Now let me explain what actually happened." Sophia pulled out a folder of documents. "You didn't make poor decisions under pressure. You planned and executed a sophisticated criminal enterprise over 2 years." She opened the folder to reveal financial records, timeline analyses, and email transcripts. "You researched our family's financial situation for months before approaching Mom. You studied Grandpa's business records to identify the most valuable assets. You created false documentation to justify stealing our money." Connor's prepared explanations crumbled as Sophia systematically destroyed each excuse. "You didn't get in too deep to find a way out. You escalated your crimes because you enjoyed the power and the money. You embezzled larger amounts each month because you were successful at avoiding detection. Sophia, you don't understand the pressure I was under. I understand that you targeted a grieving family because you thought we were too weak to stop you. I understand that you used Mom's trust and love against her. I understand that you tried to steal my grandfather's legacy because you assumed a teenage girl couldn't possibly understand your crimes." Connor's face flushed red. You have no idea what it's like to be responsible for providing for a family. And you have no idea what it's like to lose the most important person in your life, and then have someone try to steal everything he worked for. Sophia stood up. Connor, you asked for this meeting to make yourself feel better about your crimes. You thought that if you could get us to forgive you, somehow that would diminish what you did. She closed her folder and looked at him directly. But forgiveness has to be earned, not demanded. And you haven't earned anything except the consequences you're facing. Sophia, please. I'm not finished. Her voice carried an authority that filled the room. You're going to serve 12 years in prison. When you get out, you'll have a criminal record that prevents you from ever working in finance again. You'll have to rebuild your entire life from nothing. Connor's eyes filled with tears. I know I destroyed everything. Good. Because somewhere out there are other families dealing with financial predators just like you. When those criminals think about targeting vulnerable people, I want them to remember that there might be another person like me waiting to destroy their lives. She moved toward the door, pausing to deliver her final words. You tried to steal from my family because you thought we were helpless. Instead, you taught me exactly how powerful I could become when protecting people I love. Thank you for the education. 3 years after Connor's imprisonment, I was reviewing applications at my kitchen table when Sophia burst through the front door with more excitement than I'd seen from her since Arthur's death. Grandma, look at this. She dropped her backpack and pulled out an official-looking letter. FBI Special Agent Training Program, I read aloud. Congratulations on your acceptance into the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Specialized Financial Crimes Division. I'm going to be the youngest special agent in the FBI's history, Sophia explained, practically bouncing with excitement. They're creating a new position specifically for investigating family financial abuse and elder fraud. At 19, Sophia had completed her bachelor's degree in forensic accounting and earned certifications in digital forensics, cybercrime investigation, and white-collar crime prosecution. But more importantly, she'd helped recover over $2.8 million in stolen assets for families targeted by financial predators. What about Arthur's business? Mom's doing great running the day-to-day operations, and the company is more profitable than ever. Plus, I'll still consult on forensic accounting cases during my FBI training. The business had not only survived Connor's attempted theft, but thrived under Rebecca's management. She discovered a talent for construction project management and had expanded the company into commercial renovation projects. There's something else, Sophia said, pulling out another document. The state attorney general wants me to testify before Congress about family financial abuse. They're considering new federal legislation to protect elderly people from relatives who steal from them. I looked at my granddaughter, this remarkable young woman who transformed our family's worst experience into a mission to protect other families from similar crimes. And Connor, still in prison, still facing additional charges from 3 other states where authorities discovered similar fraud schemes. He'll probably serve closer to 20 years when everything is finalized. Sophia sat down across from me, her expression growing more serious. Grandma, do you ever regret how everything played out? Do you mean do I regret that Connor faced consequences for his crimes? I mean, do you regret that our family was torn apart? That Rebecca lost her husband? That I lost a stepfather figure? That our lives were completely disrupted? I considered her question carefully. Sophia, Connor tore our family apart when he decided to steal from us. We just made sure there were consequences for his choices. But some people say we were too harsh. That families should forgive each other. That sending Connor to prison destroyed any chance of reconciliation. Do you think we were too harsh? Sophia was quiet for a moment. I think Connor showed us exactly who he was when he thought he could get away with stealing from us. People don't change their fundamental character. They just get better at hiding it or worse at controlling it. She pulled out her laptop and opened a folder labeled Current Cases. In the past year, I've worked with 43 families dealing with financial abuse from relatives, grandchildren stealing from grandparents, children draining their parents' retirement accounts, spouses hiding assets and creating secret debts. How many of those families tried reconciliation? 16. And in every single case, The financial abuse continued or escalated because the criminals learned they could manipulate their family's love.
If this story got you thinking, go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that hit deep, and tap the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And hey, if you know someone who needs to hear this one, share it with them. Thanks for watching.